Recording. Okay, art critique time. So today let's do it for a weapon. What weapon is it going to be? I'm gonna give you a tip. It's one of the stock ones. So also I got just got the cleaner's carbine. Oh, here. It's one of the stock weapons. Which one? Which one? Which one? Can you guess? Can you guess? Can you guess? Ah, the grappling hook. It is the Pyros Flamethrower. So that's today's critique. This ought to be interesting also because I have critiqued the Rain Blower before, so we can compare both of these, right? So first things first, disclaimers as always. You'll see a lot of game design videos on YouTube and game design content, but I'm gonna focus more on the visuals here. I'm gonna talk just a bit about design. Game design, and also I'm gonna be using Feldman's method for this art critique, which involves going through 4 steps in order: the description, the analysis, the interpretation, and the judgment step. On the description, I'll describe what I see. On the analysis, I'll look into the elements of art. On the interpretation, I interpret the creative vision behind it. And on the judgment step, I'm gonna take a look at the principles of art to call this successful or unsuccessful art. So let's begin. Description. What do I see? Oh, yeah, like it's a flamethrower. There's like this propane canister. I don't know. Down here it has like a trigger. There is the flame in front of it. So this one apparently uses gas, right? Because there are some flamethrowers that uses liquid, and this one uses propane apparently. And yeah, it's like there's the hose here connecting the propane tank to this part of the flamethrower. There's the trigger. Anything else to mention? I suppose there's this part here. I'm not sure what is it used for. Probably for the air blast, right? Now that I think about it. Yeah, that's probably where the air blast comes from. Also, that's interesting. So I don't know why it has like these holes, because you would expect this kind of holes, maybe for the flames to not be too hot. I don't know. If you are just shooting propane at people, I don't think this would matter. But in any case, yeah. Anything else to describe here? Stuff like color and shapes are elements of art, so we might as well get to them. Let's go to the analysis then. So I'm just gonna, instead of listing every single element, I'm just gonna see mention what I see most startlingly to me. And I'm gonna remind you the elements of art that I'm using here. Points that I'm considering: points, lines, shapes, forms, space, texture, color, and value. Oh yeah. First things first, why not talk about color? One of the easiest elements of art to notice usually. So yeah, the propane tank is like white, there is this red part here near the trigger, and the rest is all basically shades of gray, right? Some darker, some lighter, some darker, for example, here at the end of it. And I suppose there is blue for this fire here that ignites the flamethrower when the pyro is using it. What else can we talk about? Why not talk about forms? There's a lot of like these tubes in it. On this part here, a lot of these very long and thin forms. Tube-like forms, cylindrical-like forms on many parts of it. But naturally there are exceptions. The propane tank is a bit thicker. There's like some unique forms here for the part near the trigger and stuff. What else? How about space? Space, we can mention there is this hollow part on the muzzle of the flamethrower, and also I guess the muzzle of the propane tank. And a little bit here for the trigger. Some tight space around the details, between this tube of the flamethrower and the propane tank. What else? We could talk about shapes. Like through this angle, we see circular shapes, but for shapes like it's like something very long again, right? I mentioned something long for the farms. For the shapes, like something very long. Again, there is like this part with a bit thinner. By the way, shapes are 2D, farms are 3D when it comes to elements of art. And what else for shapes? Yeah, and I think the most noticeable feature of the shapes are how long they are, how stretched out they are. For the shapes, it's a bit harder to see the thinness of it, although it's still noticeable, but I don't know. Like from this angle, for example, it doesn't get thin at all on that part, but still gets long. What else? Here again, like something like this angle, again, somewhat of a thicker part here, but still very long. And yeah, what else? Let's talk about value, which is about light and brightness and shadiness, light and darkness. So interesting to see that there's like a bit of a shadier part between the propane tank and this tube of the flamethrower. It would be technically the barrel of the flamethrower. Or I wonder if there's a different name for it for flamethrowers. But anyway, so you see the shadier parts between those. The naturally different angles are gonna give different effects of light and darkness, but other than that, the propane seems to reflect a lot of light, so that's interesting, makes it easy to see. And through many angles we see stuff like light being reflected on different parts of the flamethrower. A lot of different spots of brightness. But nothing too intense though, as is usual for Team Fortress 2, although there are exceptions. But I don't see... no, actually the shadows here in the inside part of the flamethrower are not that mild. It's a bit hard to see what's in there, unlike for many maps. So okay, good to see a bit of a shadier shade here, let's say. Darker shade probably. But for the brightness, more of the same, right? And I guess we should also mention that there is an effect of the fire here. I guess also a little bit of that. So a blue light, I guess. We could also, there's our points and lines, which is kind of hard to see points, right? And for lines we could mention this part of the full propane tank. What else other than that? If we're gonna analyze this line, it's basically uniform in thickness and has a lot of straightness to it. Not smooth at all. And yeah, I'm not sure if there is anything else. We would have to stop and look around for more lines, I believe. What else? And points, also something similar. And I guess I only didn't talk about texture, right? Space, color. Yeah, so texture. Let's see. Any noticeable texture? I think the most noticeable texture is like a bit more burned out parts of the muzzles of this muzzle here of the flamethrower and the muzzle on the propane tank. So that's probably the most notable textures there. Also a little bit of it around these holes, I guess. It's probably like burned textures, not something rusty. I'm gonna say it's a burned texture. Context helps, I guess, also interpreting it, right? Well, I don't know. I think this could pass for a rusty texture, but in any case, some more of a burnt one. Other than that, not sure there is much of it. We have somewhat of a bright. This is like a reflective. Okay, we have some of a reflective texture on this part of the flamethrower, also. I guess maybe we can say that. But that's mostly it. I guess there's a little bit, and maybe this time it's more of a rusty texture. Over here I just noticed it. Slightly brown there. And yeah, but there's not that much noticeable textures, right? As I see it. So if that's it for the analysis, we can move on to the interpretation. Now we're gonna take into account game design, the name, and everything else that we already said also on the previous steps. So as always, let's begin with the basics. This is part of the game. This is a game asset, you know, all that stuff. So And I checked the wiki, doesn't seem to be any... This doesn't seem to come from any other game or media, so... I'm gonna interpret the idea that this was designed as a pyro weapon 1442. Easy there, right? What else? I don't know if the fact that it's called the flamethrower, and it is a flamethrower as we described, there's the propane tank and all that stuff. I don't know if I would consider that a separate idea. I don't know. It is a flamethrower. Being a flamethrower, there are very close ideas, right? Because the pyro is the only class in the game that can burn people. I think. Ah, no, sorry. There are some niche ways. The soldier can burn people with the charged shot of the commangler, I suppose. But the pyro is noticeable, is iconic for the fire. The symbol of the pyro is a flaming, you know, fire, flaming fire. Okay. What else? When the game was launched, he was the only class that could burn people. So those ideas are so similar. Just the idea of making a weapon for the pyro and the idea of a flamethrower, that I just want to think real quick if there is anything that I think warrants separating those. I don't know. No, you know what? I think I'll separate those, because the pyro does not only has flamethrowers. The pyro also has shotguns and melee weapons. And flare guns and okay, the pyro has other weapons that are not flamethrowers, so sure, I think there's some merit in separating those ideas. That's gonna be more... We're gonna find that out more clearly on the Judgement step. But yeah, sure. So we have for now ideas of make a pyro weapon, 1442, to make a flamethrower. What else? I can think about game design. I mentioned on the description that this muzzle here apparently is it's where the air blast comes from, right? So that warrants the question if that's enough of another idea for the creative vision here, from the interpretation. And again, that ties so well just to the idea of making a weapon for the pyro. Again, I gotta think a little bit to see if it warrants something by itself. Or what would be the idea here? Oh, for this weapon, air blast. Is that it? I don't know. Everything's so connected. I think I want to try to go in a very different direction, see if I can find anything that is that's not that obvious. Let me see real quick. There we have propane, we have like the trigger. I don't know. Yeah, since this is a stock weapon, I think it's gonna be harder to find more outlandish things, let's say. So, okay, just the final question is... sure, I'll add that. Why not? The more ideas on the interpretation, the richer the critique. So I'll add the idea that they wanted this to tie to their blast mechanic, to show you that for this weapon to make sense, you know, for there be a mechanism that ties to their blast mechanic, and so visually that means this muzzle here on the propane tank. Okay, so and I guess we could also say that for the the other muzzle, but I don't know. I'm thinking it makes more sense just to focus on this air blast and this thing here. So with all that said, okay, so I'm gonna go with 3 ideas here for the creative vision that we're interpreting. To make a weapon for the Pyro 1442, to make a flamethrower, and to make something that's tied to their blast mechanic that visually communicates you that, you know, makes sense with their blast mechanic. Okay, so now we can move on to the Judgement step. Much like for the analysis, I'm not going to list everyone and say everything that I can think about each one. I'll just mention what I see it most easily. And in this case, we can also already just think on the creative vision already, see if we can find anything. so I just need to remind you which principles of art we'll be considering here, which are the movement, unity/variety, contrast, emphasis, balance, and proportion. Those 6. So let's begin. First things first. Okay, so make a apple for the pie, 14 for sure. Well, we got like, how are we gonna go about this? I guess considering the shapes and forms of how long it is, and also with the help of the element of color, I think that helps to bring about the movement, the principle of movement, through the extent of this part here. And that's naturally where the fires come from, you know. Especially because I think it's from the back to the front. Because there's like, the back part's more loaded with details, and I think there's some slight direction to go in for the principle of movement to bring my eyes forward. And so because of that, and that naturally ties to where the fires come from, and that's intrinsically tied to the game design of the pyro, right? So principle of movement there. And also I think that easily ties well to the idea of a flamethrower, right? Because obviously that ties to the mechanism of a flamethrower, and in this case the important part is that that's being conveyed visually through the principle of movement, as I see it. I could also mention the principle of unity/variety here, I suppose, because of the straightness on the forms and shapes. Here I think also helps a bit in that sense. There's repetition, it's like straight here, so it's there. So it's the continuity of the straightness. Continuity is one of the ways to achieve unity. So the continuity of the straightness of the shapes and forms here, I think you can also tie to that idea. What else? I guess there is also, let me see. So okay, so we have achieved already ways to communicate that, ways to tie the visuals here to the game mechanics, and thus communicate one way or another that this is a pyro apple. We're also communicating this is a flamethrower, so we don't need to dive too deep into the other principles of art, just only if we want to, for fun, you know. But yeah, but as I said, I'm not gonna list every single one of them. So finally, we just need to think about if there is anything artistically, visually, that communicates that, you know, the air blast. Basically this part here, right? As I mentioned before. So, are there any principles of art helping with that? I think there's a principle of contrast helping, because of the colors and the shapes of and forms. More forms, I guess, actually, than shapes. So color and the forms of the propane tank, I think, help create some contrast with the other parts of the flamethrower, and so that helps more easily notice it. And also some contrast between the propane tank itself and the muzzle in front of it. There's repetition on the holes, so in the element of space, and also the burn texture, so repetition, another way to achieve unity. On the details of the muzzle, so and all of that is naturally tied to the air blast, I suppose, one way or another. The only thing that I'm thinking now is that we would have to see in game actually whether or not that's really where the air blast comes from. Because maybe, like, in-game it actually comes from the front, but and the fire is turned off, you know, when that happens. Actually, maybe that's what happens. So okay, so is that a problem? That's the question. And does everything that we said even matter then, if that's the case? Okay, so this is an interesting situation. Naturally, only matters in game, right? Because only in game that we can realize whether the air blast is coming from either one of the muzzles, and also only in game is that the fire is gonna come out, and only in game that we're gonna see the air blast in action. So Yeah, well, the thing I'm thinking is that it seems like they gave some sort of visual cue to their blasts, but in game it doesn't work that way. I would have to check actually. I would have to check if actually that's outside this thing there the air blast comes from. And by the way, ideally we would do it in third person view, but I don't know. But I'm gonna guess it comes out of this one. And if that's the case, that's an interesting situation, because actually, what we said for the principle of movement in Unity for the fires actually also go for the air blast, you know, if that's the case. So because of other reasons it would also work. But at the same time we also have some, as I mentioned, principles of contrast and Unity tying it to the propane tank. It just gets a bit weird in the end, right? Because it feels like it has a muzzle. It feels like supposedly the gas should come from out of this one. Also, because another idea that I just thought about is that the air blast consumes like 20 ammo instantly, right? Instead of consuming one each frame. I don't know. So it would make sense for it to come out of the second muzzle as like less controlled blast, so it bursts ammo quicker. So I see a lot of reasons to believe that it was intentional, the idea of putting this muzzle to tie to the air blast mechanic. And yeah, well, either way I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because either they did it right through contrast and Unity at the very least when they placed this muzzle here, or either that or they also communicate a bit of it through the movement and Unity on the long tube here. I guess we could like ask ourselves, is it a problem that the tube expels both fire and air blasts in any considering that idea? I think not, because in practice the difference is which mouse button you pressed, right? And so I don't know. I guess they could have possibly. I don't know if that's a problem actually. I guess it would be a problem if their blast came like in-game mechanics. For example, if their blast was shot behind the pyro or something like that, you know, or above the pyro. If it did not, which wouldn't make any sense whatsoever game design-wise, right? But stuff like that, then it would be a problem because the direction would not fit at all visually. But since it's everything in the same direction, the fires and their blast, I think it's alright and matters little. And if I'm just wrong about this and the air blast comes from this muzzle of the tank in-game also, then it's just perfect, you know. Then we have the contrast and the Unity. But yeah, well, in any case, I think roughly, if I'm not mistaken somewhere, I can pass Judgement, and that this does a successful work of art. Easily, right? Very easily I missed something here somewhere. And I'll say this, like, to me, if the air blast comes out of the front one, as I said before, the long tube, the movement and the Unity, I think it helps convey it. I think it's fine. And if it comes from the muzzle here, also I think it helps convey it, but through different reasons. I would have to check in game, and again through third-person view preferably. So I'm not sure if I can do that easily right now. Can I? I don't think I can do it alone. I think I would have to get a friend and ask him through Air Blast or something. I think that's a bit too much trouble for the for it, and also in any case I'm pretty sure it would be either or, right? I guess the most we would get is to figure out whichever reason was that made this critic successful, the contrast and the Unity, or the movement in the Unity. At the very least, because there could be other principles, but whatever. I think this is fine. So thanks for tuning in to this art critique. we still have more time for gameplay, but I gotta say bye to my friends on YouTube. So bye YouTube, see ya!